It is way easier to do it selling 10 copies of something for $10,000 compared to selling 10,000 copies of something for $10.
Whoa. Wait, Lisa, hold on. Is he seriously telling someone who's currently broke that it's easier to find 10 people with 10 grand than it is to sell a cheap ebook? Okay, just stop right there.
Right.
That statement, it sounds less like a business plan and more like I don't know, a brain teaser. It's designed to make every single person who's ever tried to start something from their bedroom just short circuit.
It totally does. It goes against everything we think we know as consumers. We're taught that cheap and easy go together.
Exactly. Low price means low friction, means an easy sale. That's the assumption. But that quote, it just flipped the whole thing on its head.
I know. And that quote is actually the beating heart of our deep dive today. It comes directly from our source material. And it really challenges that core assumption. It suggests that for a beginner, it's actually easier to scale your price than it is to scale your audience.
And what's so fascinating about that, for me, is that it immediately identifies the #1 killer of new businesses.
What's that?
Customer acquisition. It's always customer acquisition. This idea suggests that starting small, but with incredibly high value, is the only really sustainable way for someone who's starting from absolute zero. My head is already spinning, and I haven't even finished my first drink.
Hustle Happy Hour!
Welcome to the chaos. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Hustle Happy Hour. This is the podcast where two friends sit down, grab a drink, and react to videos from the internet's favorite entrepreneurship gurus.
We're not here to hate, and we're definitely not here to worship. We break down what actually makes sense, what's overhyped, and what might get you into trouble if you follow it blindly.
If you've ever watched a guru and thought, wait, is that really true? You're in the right place.
So, pour a drink, pull up a seat, and let's get into today's hustle.
Okay, let's really get into this because our mission for you today is to give you a genuine shortcut. We're going to try and cut through all the noise, all the pain of starting a business by analyzing a resource called The Easiest Business to Start in 2026 for Beginners.
And our source for this is a fantastic video breakdown from Ali Abdaal,
Yeah,
the doctor who became this massive online entrepreneur.
of course.
And he's not just talking about, how to make a quick buck. He is laying out a very, very specific strategy to achieve what he calls a trifecta of freedoms: financial freedom, time freedom, and creative freedom.
And he makes this really compelling claim that most beginners, just by instinct, start their business on hard mode.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And so he provides this structured 3-pillar blueprint for how to flip the switch over to easy mode.
And that's the whole key right there. The entire conversation today is going to hinge on these 3 big strategic shifts. First, we have to get our heads around the price and people equation. Basically, why charging a lot of money is actually a risk reduction strategy for a beginner.
Then, second, we're going to dissect what he calls the service-to-product spectrum. This is about why really, really boring, unglamorous services are fundamentally a better starting point than sexy, cool products.
And finally, we'll look at how you actually find a high-value niche and, more importantly, how you structure an offer that can actually command that high price tag.
The core philosophy here is, well, it's simple, but it's also radically counterintuitive for anyone dreaming of being an entrepreneur.
Lay it on us.
Beginners should only be aiming for high-priced, low-volume services. And these services need to solve painful, expensive problems for entities that have a lot of capital. So we're talking about businesses or, wealthy individuals.
Right, because the moment you try to play the volume game,
You're dead in the water. You're competing with giants with infinite ad budgets. For a beginner, the volume game is a death sentence.
that sets the stage perfectly. This isn't about hustle culture, it's about strategic survival. So let's jump right into the foundation of this whole idea, which is just some simple math, but with a psychological twist that trips up almost everyone. Okay, so the basic math of any business is, well, it's dead simple. Revenue is just the number of customers, let's call that N, multiplied by the price of what you're selling, P.
N times P equals revenue.
Exactly. NXP equals revenue. But the simplicity of that formula, it hides this huge strategic complexity because the choice you make on the P side, the price, it radically changes everything you have to do on the N side.
It changes the entire workload, the infrastructure you need, the marketing, everything. And that choice is what ultimately determines if you succeed or if you, like most beginners, just burn out and fail.
And this is where the source gives us this fantastic mental framework. It uses the goal of making $100,000 in revenue as the benchmark. That's the point where you can say, okay, this is a real business, not just a hobby.
Right. And then he just meticulously breaks down the different paths to get to that $100,000. And when you see the numbers side by side, I mean, the contrast is genuinely shocking.
Let's actually run through that thought experiment for you, the listener, because when you see the numbers required for the low price models, it really just hammers home the crushing reality of volume.
So let's say you want to hit $100,000 in revenue and you go the high volume, low price route.
The classic beginner mistake.
The classic. If you're selling something for just $1, you need to find 100,000 different people to buy it.
100,000 people. Just think about that number.
It's staggering.
Okay.
Let's say you raise your price. You sell a $10 item. You still need 10,000 customers. 10,000. Even if you're selling us, say, a pretty high-ticket product for $100, you still need to find 1,000 customers.
And finding 1,000 customers from a standing start with no audience is a monumental task.
It's a full-time job for a whole marketing department, not one person. Now let's flip it. Let's look at the low volume, high price side of the equation.
Okay.
To hit that same $100,000 goal, you could sell something for $10,000 to just 10 people.
10? From 10,000 down to 10?
10. That is a human scale effort. You can probably name 10 people you know right now, or, if you're doing some super specialized consulting, you could charge $100,000 to a single client. All of these paths get you to the exact same revenue goal.
But the amount of work and stress involved is it's night and day.
The problem, and the source really nails this, is our own cognitive bias. As regular people, as consumers, we are constantly making low-price transactions.
We buy a coffee for $3, a sandwich for 10.
Exactly. And because those exchanges are so frequent and so easy, we make this deeply flawed conclusion that selling cheap things must be easier. We don't realize we're applying a consumer's mindset to a business-building problem.
The creator of the video, Ali, he even admitted he used to think this way. He thought, oh, I'll just sell tons of cheap stuff. It'll be way easier than selling one expensive thing. But he realized the truth is the opposite.
The real bottleneck isn't the price tag. It's the sheer volume of people you have to reach.
So why is volume so hard for a beginner? Let's just spell it out.
Because the core challenge, the single thing that makes or breaks you at the start, is customer acquisition. When you're starting from scratch, you have no authority, you have no viral video, you don't have 1 million followers on Instagram.
And most importantly, you do not have a multi-million-dollar marketing budget to just fire at the problem.
Right. So think about the difference in effort. Let's say you're trying to sell a $10 ebook. To find 10,000 customers for that, you need to build this massive content machine, run complex Facebook ad campaigns, you have to manage sales funnels, and you're fighting against thousands of other people doing the exact same thing.
You're trying to become a needle in a global haystack.
Now, compare that to the effort to find just 10 customers who are willing to pay you $10,000 for a custom solution to their problem.
Okay.
This is no longer an infrastructure problem. It becomes a human scale problem. You need a really good portfolio, you need to be good at networking, and you need to be able to have a serious, high-touch conversation and close a deal.
Which is hard, for sure. No one's saying it's easy.
It's definitely hard, but it's controllable. It's learnable by one person. You don't need a venture capital firm backing you to learn how to do that.
The analogy from the source is just perfect. Selling that $10 ebook versus selling a $10,000 service package. Sure, getting one single person to click buy on the book is easier than getting one executive to sign a contract.
Of course it is.
But when your goal is $100,000 in revenue, the sheer scale needed for the book means you basically have to become a world famous author, whereas the service just requires you to be known and trusted by 10 very specific people.
And the infrastructure. Just think about the overhead. If you're selling a physical product, you need manufacturing, you need quality control, warehousing, shipping, inventory.
Don't forget returns, customer service for thousands of people.
And a constant optimized ad spend that's probably burning through cash just to break even. If you're selling a $10,000 service, what do you need? You need a laptop, a good internet connection, and maybe a Zoom account.
The difference in complexity is just staggering, and this lets us map out the different zones of business viability.
Yes. First, you have the red zone. This is hard mode. This is the death trap for beginners.
Sounds ominous.
It is. It's cheap items, massive volume needs, and an incredibly low chance of success unless you are already famous. We're talking about the typical $1 to $100 price range for a product or service. You are just fighting against giants in that space.
Okay, then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is technically viable but doesn't really meet the freedom goals. He calls this the job zone.
Exactly. This is where you sell one thing for $100,000. It hits the money goal, for sure, but it's often just a high-paying freelance contract. It's a job.
It doesn't scale. It doesn't give you time freedom. You're still just trading your hours for dollars, just at a very high rate.
You're still trading, say, 2,000 hours of your life for $100,000,
Mm.
which is great, but it's not a scalable business that gives you freedom. And that brings us to the sweet spot, the easy mode.
And the recommended price point for a one-off package or service here is what?
Between $2,000 and $20,000, the creator really emphasizes this range. It's the Goldilocks zone
Why is that range specifically?
because it's high enough that you completely eliminate the volume problem. You only need a handful of clients a year, but it's also low enough that you don't have to be, a world-renowned C-suite consultant to get started.
And critically, just aiming for that price range automatically filters out 99% of bad business ideas. It forces you to think about providing immense value.
It simplifies the entire brainstorming process for you as a beginner.
But we have to talk about the fear factor here, because when a beginner hears charge $10,000, I mean, they just freeze up. The immediate thought is, I don't have skills that are worth $10,000.
And that is the exact mental barrier the source says you have to get over. It's about reframing it. You are not selling $10,000 worth of your time.
Right.
You are selling a solution that will generate, say, $50,000 of future gains or future savings for your client. The hard part isn't charging the money. The hard part for everyone is getting the customer in the first place.
And if you're going to go through all the effort of getting a customer,
You might as well make it count. It is infinitely better for your business if they pay you $5,000 once than if they pay you $50.
Hmm.
The effort to acquire them is often surprisingly similar, but the reward changes everything about your business's viability.
we should also quickly touch on the recurring revenue model here, subscriptions, because that adds another layer of pressure, especially on the low-ticket side.
Yeah, the source advises focusing on a one-off price first, just to prove the concept. But the math on recurring revenue is really compelling in that high-ticket range. Let's stick with the $100K goal.
Okay, so a high-ticket subscription.
Let's say you charge $10,000 per year for, I don't know, a specialized software license or retained consulting service. You only need to find and keep 10 customers a year to hit your goal.
And once you have them, you're not constantly on the hunt. Your revenue for next year is mostly secure, assuming you do a good job.
But now let's contrast that with a low-ticket recurring product. Let's say a $20 a month membership.
The kind everyone seems to want to start.
Exactly. To hit $100,000 a year, you need to find and keep roughly 416 paying customers. And that's assuming a 0% churn rate, which is impossible.
So you are just relentlessly on the marketing treadmill. Month after month, you have to find hundreds of new people.
For a beginner without a huge audience, that kind of pressure is just crushing. It completely destroys the whole goal of time freedom.
And the source gives these perfect case studies of this in action, these hard mode examples. The first was a woman who wanted to start a modest fashion brand.
Yeah, selling leggings and sports bras in that, $10 to $100 price bracket.
A classic red zone idea.
It's a classic failure in the making, unfortunately. She needs a ton of volume, a huge investment in inventory, she has to figure out logistics, and she needs a mountain of cash for marketing.
Even with a good niche like modest running clothes.
It doesn't matter. The low price point forces her to compete on a global e-commerce scale. That model only works if you're already a Kardashian or you have millions in venture capital. A beginner just can't play that game.
And the second case study was a student from his own academy, the LBA, who wanted to sell a digital membership for life improvement for $20 a month.
And again, it just fails the volume test spectacularly. The number of customers he'd need to acquire every single month is just unsustainable for someone starting out.
Plus, you're competing with a world of free content on YouTube and podcasts.
The takeaway from this whole first pillar is so profound. Pricing isn't just about what you think people will pay. It's a strategic choice about what level of effort and infrastructure you, as a beginner, can actually handle.
And for almost everyone, that path of least resistance is the high-touch, low-volume, high-price model.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting, before we move on, that the creator even mentioned building a custom GPT tool for his students.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a free tool trained on his course materials, specifically to help people brainstorm and define these high-value $2,000 to $20,000 offers.
So even the technology is being leveraged to support this specific philosophy?
Right. The idea is to use AI to streamline the idea phase, but the real money, the real opportunity, is still in the human implementation, which I think brings us perfectly to our next big point.
Okay, so we've done the hard part. We've committed to this $2,000 to $20,000 price range, which means we've just eliminated 90% of the typical startup ideas out there.
Right. But that commitment immediately forces the next big strategic choice. What exactly are you selling for that price? And this is where we have to tackle the huge cognitive bias that pushes everyone towards making products.
It's almost an overwhelming bias, isn't it? When people daydream about starting a business, they picture a product.
Always. It's a cool app or a unique brand of coffee or, a fashion line, some gadget they can sell on Shopify. And the source just nails the reason why.
It's because the businesses we see and admire every single day, Apple, Nike, Starbucks, you name it, they all sell products.
So we make this huge logical leap. We mistakenly think that product is the only path to real success and wealth. We see the slick launch videos and the huge factories, and we think that's where you have to start.
But as the creator points out, those companies are the tiny 1% who survive the product wars, the manufacturing wars, the distribution wars. They are not the model for a beginner.
The hidden truth, the thing we don't see, is the service economy, the unglamorous, unseen majority of businesses.
The source specifically mentioned places like the UK and Hong Kong.
Exactly. In these highly developed economies, most of the GDP growth is driven by service businesses. We're talking legal, financial advising, accounting, a specialized digital consulting, implementation services.
The creator called them boring AF businesses.
And that's the point. They are boring in the sense that they're not going to go viral on TikTok, but they are incredibly reliable, they're essential, and they generate enormous consistent money.
And we come back to the fundamental problem with product businesses for a beginner.
It's the volume trap again and again. If your product is cheap, you need massive scale and infrastructure. And even if you sell a high-end physical product, say for $1,000, you're still dealing with inventory and returns and manufacturing delays and global shipping. It's hard mode.
The example of the successful local business owner, like a kebab shop owner.
Right. That person is unlikely to achieve true financial and time freedom unless they decide to franchise their business and build a huge empire.
Which just throws them right back into hard mode, managing volume and infrastructure.
We should probably get really precise with our definitions here, just to be clear.
Good idea. A product is what?
A product is something you make that does a job on its own after the sale. It's a physical thing, an app, a piece of software. A service is something you do for a client. You consult, you strategize, you fix a broken process, you implement a system for them.
But the motivation for the customer is the same for both. They're buying it to solve a problem or to get a job done.
Exactly. The difference is all about the ease of starting and scaling for the lone beginner.
Okay, let's anchor this with that perfect easy mode case study from the video. The story of Elias and Hyatt, the students from the Lifestyle Business Academy.
Yes, this is such a good example. Their service. They help accounting firms in London speed up their new client onboarding process.
I mean, you can't get much more boring or specific than that.
And that is exactly why it is a brilliant business. The price they were charging was around $8,000 for this service.
$8,000 to fix an onboarding process.
And the reason it works so well is because it is aggressively boring. And it targets a very painful, very expensive business problem. They weren't trying to build the next Instagram. They were solving a specific, costly administrative headache.
And their client isn't just some random person, it's a business, an accountancy firm. And those firms are more than willing to pay high prices for tangible savings.
This is where we have to really dig into the ROI calculation, the return on investment, because this is the absolute core of selling a high-ticket service.
Okay, let's break it down.
An accounting firm that has a really inefficient process for onboarding a new client might waste, say, 20 hours of a highly paid accountant's time for every new client.
And that time is billable time they're losing.
Exactly. Now, if that firm brings on 50 new clients a year, that inefficiency is costing them tens of thousands of dollars annually in wasted labor, not to mention the risk of losing a client because the first impression was so bad.
So if Elias and Hyatt's $8,000 service can come in and save that firm, say, 100 total staff hours over the course of a year.
And let's say those staff hours are billed out at, I don't know, $150 an hour. That service is generating $15,000 in savings for the firm. Suddenly, that $8,000 fee doesn't just look reasonable, it looks cheap.
It's a no-brainer.
This is the critical insight that flips the whole game into easy mode. When you sell to a business, the question is no longer, can they afford this? The question becomes, how quickly will this service make me more money or save me more money than it costs me?
It's a direct, measurable ROI. And that is a conversation any business owner is happy to have.
The moment you shift from selling to consumers B2C, where people buy based on emotion or disposable income, to selling to businesses B2B, where they buy based on the impact of their profit and loss statement.
You unlock the ability to charge high prices that are completely justified by clear, predictable results. All right, so we've locked in the strategy. A high-ticket service that targets a business with a painful problem. The final piece of the puzzle, before we even think about selling, is how do we actually deliver the service?
Right. And the source lays out this really clear spectrum of delivery models. And his advice is very, very firm. For a beginner, you have to start at the highest value point. It's the least scalable, but it's by far the most lucrative.
This maps out a journey, really, from high-touch implementation, which is basically selling your time and a direct expertise, all the way to low-touch information, which is just selling knowledge.
And the gold standard, the place every beginner should start, is number one, done for you or DFY.
Done for you. So what does that mean in practice?
In a DFY model, you, the service provider, you do all the work for the client. You are the implementation team. You don't just give them a blueprint, you build the house.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you help e-commerce stores improve their conversion rates. A DFY service means you don't just send them a report with suggestions. You get access to their Shopify account. You go into their analytics. You rewrite the copy. You A/B test the checkout process. You do the work.
And why is this king for beginners?
Because this model justifies and commands the absolute highest prices. The client gets the result, the transformation, without having to lift a finger themselves. For a busy business owner, their time is their most valuable asset. They are paying you to save them time.
Let's bring it back to that accounting firm example.
Perfect. They paid $8,000 for a done-for-you service because they're too busy running their firm to fix their own onboarding process. They would never in a million years pay $80 for a do-it-yourself course on how to optimize it.
Because they'd never even log in.
They never log in. They need the problem to be gone, not to be given a textbook on how to solve it themselves. That's why DFY is so powerful.
Okay, so moving down the spectrum, we have the middle ground. The source calls this done with you, or DWY.
Right. This is more of a coaching or consulting model. You provide guidance, you hold their hand, you support them, but the client still has to do a lot of the implementation work themselves.
So it's more scalable for the provider.
Much more scalable than DFY, because you can leverage your time across multiple clients at once, but it still offers high value and it's high touch. It's often the next logical step for a service provider once their DFY service is in high demand.
And finally, we get to the category where, most aspiring online entrepreneurs start and fail. Do it yourself or DIY.
And this is where you're selling pure information. Online courses, cheap ebooks, templates, low-cost memberships. The client has to do all the work themselves. You're selling the manual, not the finished product.
And the source makes a really strong, almost urgent argument against starting here. And this is critical because it ties into how the digital world is changing so fast.
It fails for two main reasons. The first is volume. DIY products almost always fall into that low-price red zone, the $10 to $100 range, which throws you right back onto that brutal marketing treadmill we talked about.
And the second reason?
The AI factor. This is the really critical forward-looking point. The value of pure information is dropping to zero. Information is rapidly becoming a commodity.
Because if you need to know how to do something basic, like set up a sales funnel,
You can just ask ChatGPT. Or you can watch one of 50,000 high-quality free videos on YouTube that'll walk you through it step by step. The source calls a lot of this AI slop instantly available knowledge. The bar for what's available for free is getting higher every single day.
So the future value isn't in the what, it's in the how.
Exactly. The economy of the future commoditizes the knowledge, the DIY, and puts an enormous premium on the implementation and the guaranteed outcome, the DFY. The client is paying to bypass the learning curve and the risk of failure entirely.
It's like the difference between reading a medical textbook online to diagnose yourself versus paying a surgeon to just perform the operation and fix the problem.
That's a perfect analogy. The information is free. The expert implementation is not. And this is such a great pivot point because once you have this high-ticket DFY service running, you solve your active income problem. You create significant cash flow.
But if the goal is true freedom, financial and time freedom, that cash flow needs to be put to work passively.
Absolutely. The whole philosophy here is to create an engine that generates cash. But once you have that engine, you need to invest the profits so they can compound on their own. All right, we have the complete blueprint now. We know we need to start a done-for-you service, and we need to be charging between $2,000 and $20,000. But the final, and maybe most important piece, is specificity. What are we actually selling, and who exactly are we selling it to? This is the niche selection phase, and it is not about brainstorming cool ideas you're passionate about.
No.
No, it's defined by two absolutely non-negotiable components. First, who is the person or the business you are targeting? And second, what is the specific, expensive, painful problem they are suffering from right now?
So the service itself is just the bridge between that person and the solution to their painful problem.
Precisely. Which brings us to rule number one, the easy mode mandate. Target the wealthy or businesses.
You have to fish where the fish are.
I have to fish where the fish have money. It is so much easier to justify and charge a high price if your customer is either a rich individual or, even better, a business with a budget for this kind of thing.
Because if you try to build your $5,000 service targeting people who are in a tough spot financially,
You're fighting a battle on two fronts. You have to convince them of the value, which is hard enough, but then you also have to battle their basic economic reality, which might make it impossible for them to pay you no matter how much they want to.
just think about the psychology of it. If your client is a successful law firm, 10 grand is a line item in their annual budget. It's a business expense.
It's pre-approved. But if your client is an individual trying to get out of debt, 10 grand is a life-altering, impossible amount of money. You have to choose your customer based on their capacity to pay for a high-value outcome.
Okay, so that's the who. Now for rule number 2. Identify the pain.
The problem you solve can't be a minor annoyance. It has to be genuinely painful. Painful enough that the client is highly motivated to make it stop right now, and they're willing to pay a premium for that relief.
If the problem is just like their website loads a little bit slow, they'll put it off forever.
But if the problem is that their sales funnel is leaking thousands of dollars a day, they will pay you anything to fix it immediately. Pain is what drives premium pricing.
And this brings us to the ideal kind of problem to solve. The one that offers a tangible, measurable return on investment, or ROI.
Yes. The easiest possible services for a beginner to sell are those that help the client do one of two things: make more money or save more money. If you can put a number on your impact, your price becomes incredibly easy to justify.
Let's dig into the make money proposition first.
So if a business is struggling to get new leads or to close sales, and your service fixes that, you are not a cost center. You are a direct profit center.
Right.
You can justify charging $15,000 because you can show them how you're going to help them bring in $150,000 of new measurable revenue. You're effectively asking for a small finder's fee on the value you create for them.
That becomes such an irresistible offer for a business owner. If you can say, pay me $10,000 and I will generate at least $50,000 in new revenue for you within 6 months, it's not an expense anymore.
It's an investment with a high predictable return. That is playing business on easy mode.
And the save money proposition is just as powerful.
Absolutely. If your service can save a larger company $100,000 a year on their operational costs, or by fixing some inefficient process, like our accounting onboarding example, you can comfortably charge $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000 for that.
The source really emphasizes this point. You are saving them substantially more money than you are costing them.
You become an economic necessity, not some luxury they can do without. And that direct link between your service and a clear financial outcome is the entire foundation of a viable $10,000 beginner business.
Okay, but now we have to talk about the common beginner idea that falls right into what the source calls the intangible trap.
Yes. Services that are focused on internal transformations, things like life coaching or mindset consulting.
What are some examples of these intangible problems?
Things like general life coaching or reducing anxiety or helping someone find their purpose or even overcoming procrastination or curing imposter syndrome.
Now, these are all incredibly valuable things.
Genuinely valuable. But they are incredibly difficult to sell for $2,000 to $20,000 because the value is so subjective. It's internal, and it's almost impossible to prove with a hard ROI calculation.
So what's the solution? The advice isn't to just abandon these ideas, right?
No, not at all. The advice is to tie the intangible internal transformation to a tangible external result. You have to externalize the value.
Can you give an example of that reframing?
Sure. So instead of your offer being, I help professionals overcome imposter syndrome, which is very internal and fuzzy,
Right.
you reframe the entire offer to be, I help working professionals cure their imposter syndrome so that they can finally secure the promotion and the raise they deserve.
Ah, I see. That instantly connects the service to a make money outcome. A raise is an external, measurable financial result.
And that result is what justifies the $2,000 to $20,000 price point.
It boils down to this core sales lesson for any high-ticket service. People primarily buy external, measurable results that are obvious to other people. They don't buy internal feelings, especially not at a premium price. The internal transformation is a fantastic side effect, but the external, quantifiable result is what gets the contract signed.
If you cannot quantify the value you deliver in terms of dollars saved, dollars gained, or even time recovered that directly translates to dollars, you are going to struggle so much to justify that $2,000 minimum price. The beginner's focus has to be on economic outcomes first and personal feelings second.
Okay, let's bring this all home for you, the listener. Let's synthesize this entire easy mode blueprint. This is the structured anti-failure recipe that we've distilled from the source material.
The recipe is all about minimizing risk and maximizing your initial revenue. So step 1, target a high capital entity, a business, or a wealthy person. Step 2, identify a painful problem that is measurably costing them time or money.
Step 3, create a high-touch, high-price service solution, ideally in that sweet spot of $2,000 to $20,000.
And finally, step 4, make sure that solution is delivered for you, DFY, and guarantees a tangible, quantifiable return on investment, or ROI.
The genius of this whole philosophy is how it sidesteps the two things that kill most beginners: the insane need for volume and the massive infrastructure required to support cheap products.
It's a strategic antidote to that whole launch a cheap online course and pray for the best mentality that's so common.
And we should definitely reinforce the source's final piece of advice here. This isn't just some random theory he came up with. It's grounded in a lot of established business literature.
Right. He advises people to deepen their understanding by reading specific books, he notes, that all reinforce these same principles. The point is that this isn't some hustle hype idea. It's a proven, systematic way to build a business.
So now for our final verdict. Is this universally good advice? Is it just situational? Or is it pure hustle hype? And I want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Doesn't charging $10,000 right out of the gate just raise the bar for expertise to an impossible level? If I'm a total beginner, why on earth would a client trust me with that much money?
That's a great question, and it's the right one to be asking. But the answer is no. It is not hustle hype. It is exceptionally good, structured advice.
Okay.
The reason a beginner can command that price is twofold. First, you're not competing against world-famous experts. You are competing locally or in a very specific vertical for these highly specific, boring services.
And
Second, you are only selling the promise of ROI. You're not selling your resume. You are saying, I am so confident in my specific solution for your specific problem that I will charge you $10,000 because I know it's going to save or make you $50,000.
So the expertise required isn't some kind of generalized business genius.
Right.
It's deep, focused knowledge in one very boring, very profitable niche.
Precisely. It puts you in a bespoke consultative role where your specific knowledge is the asset. You're not trying to compete with Amazon. You're competing with your client's own internal inefficiency.
The brilliance of the strategy is that it eliminates the volume problem and forces you, the beginner, to focus on a problem that is intrinsically valuable enough to pay for itself almost immediately.
It is the difference between trying to compete globally for attention, like selling a $10 ebook, versus competing locally for a specific B2B contract, like selling a $10,000 optimization service.
The second one requires a controllable, learnable, sales-driven skill set. The first one requires a massive amount of luck, or a massive amount of capital.
The source material is just this powerful reminder that if you have to trade your time for money, which we all do at the start, you should charge enough money that you only need to make that trade 10 times a year to hit your goals, not 10,000 times.
And that right there is the definition of achieving financial and time freedom through strategy, not just pure brute force hustle.
So we've broken down the whole easy mode blueprint. High price, high touch, DFY service, focus on a measurable ROI. For you, the listener, here's a final thought to mull over, one that kind of looks at the future of this whole strategy.
Ooh, I like this.
If AI continues to make pure knowledge, the DIY information, essentially free, what is the most valuable and painful problem out there that is not currently being solved by AI, but where AI is creating the perfect solution or information?
Wow. Okay. Think about that. If an AI can instantly write the perfect sales copy or design the most efficient accounting workflow,
Who is the person that charges $5,000 to take that perfectly generated solution and integrate it into the messy, complex existing systems of a real-world client? Who tracks the ROI and then iterates on it?
That person isn't the one who created the information.
No, that person is the necessary human implementation layer. And that's the easy mode question for 2026 and beyond.
That is an excellent point. The real value, the real freedom is in the execution.
I checked the original video's comments. Here's a few gems. The supportive one. Finally, I spent $2,000 on a dropshipping course and made $0. I started editing videos for local businesses for $1,000 a pop, and I'm actually making rent. This totally validates Ali's point about service over products. The skeptical one. Ali makes it sound easy because he's Ali Abdaal. Try asking a stranger for $8,000 when you have 0 followers and 0 testimonials. This hits the nail on the head. That initial trust gap is huge. The unhinged, funny one. Instruction unclear. I tried to sell a done-for-you kebab eating service for $2,000. No takers yet.
Hey, if he helps them save time on eating, maybe there's a niche there. So, Bart, what's the final verdict? Is Ollie's easy mode actually easy?
I call this situational advice.
Why?
It's good because it steers people away from the trap of low-margin products that require millions of views to work. But it's situational because you have to be willing to do the boring work, like accountancy onboarding, rather than the sexy work, like starting a lifestyle brand.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into what might just be the easiest business to start.
We really hope this gave you a few of those aha moments about your own business ideas and, probably most importantly, your pricing.
Now go out there and stop fighting for volume. Start thinking about where you can save a rich person $10,000.
That's our tab for tonight. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode of Hustle Happy Hour.
If you want more, check out our last video right here, where we reacted to another amazing entrepreneurship guru.
What guru should we tackle next? Drop a comment or send us a link.
Drinks are on us, metaphorically. See you in the next one.